Let's have a look at what Ed Miliband's been up to. He's in a wind turbine factory in Hull, believe it or not.
And what I'm talking about today is absolutely part of the mission for growth of this government, because I'm here at a wind turbine factory here in Hull, employing 1,300 people. And Anna, honestly, the future is being built at this factory. The future of our country, the future of our energy system, the future of a growing economy. And I think that's what's so exciting about what we're doing today. We're talking about an age of clean electricity, which can give us energy security, lower bills, good jobs and growth, and tackle the climate crisis. So we're not just talking about it, we've got a plan to make it happen.
Actually, you aren't just talking about it, because a plan to make it happen isn't anything other than you talking about it. So the idea that you're not talking about it doesn't make it a plan. I mean, what's wrong with these people? Do they think we're idiots? Do they actually think that listening to him talking about it is going to make us think he's not talking about it? He's talking about it. That's all he's doing. Let's talk to Will Kingston and talk about Ed Miliband. What a plank. Will, very good morning to you.
G'day, Mike. How are you?
I mean, sorry. I mean, Ed Miliband, everything he says gets counter-mounded by anybody who's got a brain. I mean, he's been telling us all that the CEO of the National Energy System Operator, NESO, is going to back him up and say that, you know, our work in the renewables sector is going to make your energy prices go down. Everybody knows that's not true. Everybody knows that energy prices keep going up. They've gone up twice since Labour have been in. They're going to go up again another 2 times between January and Easter. So he's talking absolute nuts and rubbish, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. There was a good little line in the papers this morning from the Institute of Economic Affairs where they said you can't make energy cheaper by deliberately making it more expensive.
Right.
It is completely just it is nonsensical. And the other thing I think is interesting with people like Miliband is that they know that the primary justification for this, which is lowering carbon emissions, is nonsense because the UK contributes 3/5 of bugger all to global climate emissions. So they have to come up with these secondary justifications like, you know, green jobs or protecting our energy sector from foreign tyrants. And they don't really add up. It's just all this subterfuge to get around the main fact that this primary project is entirely symbolic and entirely suicidal.
Yeah, it really is. But yet they won't seem to be, you know, sort of wavered away from it, you know. I mean, we keep hearing from various different people that there's no real achievable aim. You know, you want to make it 2030, you want to make it 2040, you want to make it 2060. You know, all of these things, it's just virtue signalling nonsensical statements that make it sound as though you're doing something, but actually you're really not doing anything.
Yeah, well, this is where you have to really think through the psychology of someone like Miliband and the Labor left more generally. This is not about policy for them as much as it is dogma. It is religion for these people. If you were to come out and provide a report tomorrow that said that the impact of climate change was overstated, they would not take it into consideration because this is now an article of faith. And the problem with religion, or the problem with kind of dogma, is that it refuses to basically kind of take into account practical considerations. And that's unfortunately the sad reality of where we find ourselves in this country right now.
Yeah, we do. I mean, there are other countries that are doing it as well, but more and more of them are sort of moving slightly away. And with Donald Trump coming in the new year, and January the 6th, he becomes the new President of the United States of America, you know, I think there's going to be a sort of a bit of a sea change, if you like, in the attitudes of every government around the country and around the world because of Trump and because of his slight scepticism, shall we say, about climate change.
Yeah, I think you're going to see this across a range of different areas in the UK because it's just going to be this incredibly stark contrast between economic growth in the US, between finally getting legal immigration under control in the US, and of course getting the net zero stupidity out of the way.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to be looking across the pond and saying, why can't we have that sort of common sense approach? It's the Trump effect, and I think it's very real.
Yeah, I think it is. Let's have a look at Keir Starmer. We talked about this earlier. We've shown the clip earlier. We've got a slightly longer clip of him visiting, you know, Cassie, the very surprised Cassie, because she didn't know he was coming, amazingly. Have a look.
She's absolutely fascinated with the cameras, aren't you? Look at that. What do you think? Ah, you must be Cassie. I'm Keir.
Moved in end of January 2021.
So you watched it being built?
Yes.
And then moved in? Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what have you got here? Is it 2 beds?
3 beds.
And
yeah.
how's it feel to have your own place?
amazing. Yeah.
But the thing about having your own house is, just the security of it and the sort of base camp.
Yeah.
Hugely important.
Yeah. Freddie loves being in the school.
Yeah.
He's settled.
How old's Freddie?
He's 6.
Okay. So he's in you too.
It's about 10 minutes to walk.
Oh, so that's nice. So you can walk.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
What this is all about is the security of a home of your own. We just had a cup of tea with Cassie. She's got 2 children. They've got a 3-bedroomed house on this particular development. And that's the story of their life, their aspiration. There are very many families who will hear this and say, I'm working hard, I'd like that opportunity, but I haven't got it. So that's why we're determined to push on with house building. We intend to make that dream come true.
I've got a couple of questions here, Will. First of all, she moved in 2021, long before the Labour government came into power. Second, the place seems to be a building site. Now, if she's living there for 3 years, why is it not finished? What on earth are they doing? And why does it take 5 years to build, an estate? And he's amazed at the fact that she's got a 6-year-old boy who can walk to school. Well, you'd like to think he can walk. He's 6, right? Sorry.
They're all fair points. Look, it's just extraordinary, the lack of charisma that this guy has, if nothing else.
Oh, my God.
You look at the way that he just presents his hand gestures like a robot when he's speaking to this woman in her kitchen.
Yeah.
He's really
and also he's been briefed. I mean, they've chosen this woman. They've gone through the process. She's probably one of about 15 people that they thought they'd go and see, and he doesn't even know how many bedrooms she's got. Yeah,
look, he is one of the worst retail politicians I've ever seen in my lifetime. To answer your question, we don't have the workers in this country to be able to get houses up quickly enough, and that's why the housing targets that they put forward are never going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see what justification that they put up, in a few years' time when the numbers are
if the standard
short.
If the speed and the standard of building housing is exactly what it is where Cassie lives, they'll be building housing for about 15 years to get to 1.5 million. Because, as I say, they haven't finished building the place she lives in after 4 years.
Yeah, and look, by that stage, there'll be a lot more than 1.5 million migrants who will have entered the country, and so we'll still be at a housing deficit. And this is the other thing which I find so odd, is that all of Labor's policies appear to be contradictory. They're talking about housing, but at the same time, we secretly know they're also pro high levels of immigration. Yeah. They talk about cost of living, but at the same time, they're pushing ahead with net zero. They talk about economic growth, but every single economic policy is around regulation and around nationalisation. And it speaks to a government that doesn't really know who it is. It doesn't have a clear sense of a purpose. And as a result, it just has this grab bag of strange, tension-filled items that they're trying to pull together all at once.
And with every week that passes, they become more unpopular. It was only last week. Yeah. I mean, it might seem to you, as it does to me, literally like last year, when they sort of reset the whole idea of what they were going to do. And Keir Starmer went out and made a speech on Thursday of last week, a week ago, well, actually, a week and a bit ago, to sort of say, this is what we're all about. And after that, the popularity rating went even lower.
Yeah, because you don't just come up with a clear, coherent ideology over breakfast, Mike. This is something which, if you're a real politician, you think through for years. It is something which grows and evolves. But the problem with Keir Starmer is that he's a technocrat. Yeah. He's never, I think, thought deeply about his political beliefs. He's
awful, isn't he?
He's just vacuous. He's entirely vacuous.
Right.
And as a result of that, we are stuck with this rudderless, uncharismatic, technocratic, incompetent leader, which we're now stuck with for 4.5 years.
Yeah, it is really absolutely awful. Let's have a look at Lucy Powell. She's the leader of the House of Commons. She made a speech yesterday in which she tried to make out that we all want this.
The country voted for change, Mr. Speaker. They voted to change from their government. They voted to change from their record. They voted to improve their living standards. They voted to change the NHS. And they voted because they wanted this country to be fixed.
Yeah, well, that may well be true, but unfortunately that's what's happening. Check the energy dashboard this morning, says Barbara, and guess what? Currently 67.8% is gas, and I guess that's imported from abroad. It's not looking too good for the renewables. So once again, we hear from Ed Miliband that we're going to be, relying on renewables, and frankly, most of the time, certainly in the winter, it's less than about 10% of the supply to the grid.
Yeah. Tony Abbott, former Australian Prime Minister, called these things the dark satanic mills of the modern age.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
I think that pretty much sums it up. And not only do they just work unreliably, you'll go through the countryside of England now, which is the most beautiful part of the world, and they are just rubbished by these awful ugly monstrosities. It really is sad. So many of the things that we're talking about, Mike, today are self-inflicted harms on this country. It's one thing if, you get invaded or if there's a global recession or something and it's somewhat out of your control. I think the tragedy of the UK at the moment is so many of the things that this country is doing are harming itself, and they are avoidable with a bit of common sense.
Right. Well, we are actually getting invaded, but nobody wants to admit it. That's another story altogether.